Alright, so what I have here is 2 VC vinyl composition tile, and I'm going to do, these are going to be tiles that I can give to customers. I'm going to put one coat over the whole, both tiles, and then 2/3 is going to have a second coat, and 1/3 is going to have a third coat. And in between each coat, I'm going to buff the Sentry Floor Shield H2O, and then we can see one coat buffed. We can see 2 coats that was buffed in between each coat, and we can see 3 coats buffed in between each coat. So I'm going to use this as my applicator. I found that it works pretty good. It gets enough material out there. And I'm gonna try and wait an hour in between each coat, also just to kind of set up how scale would work. It could be every half hour, but if I go every hour, you know, that would give a crew enough time to go do, you know, an hour's worth of flooring, you know, enough square footage for an hour, and then come back and rework that hour's worth of floor. And that should be like about a half of a day's worth of coating and buffing. So you can see how this lays out with this. We have a machine that can lay out a large quantity. And you use a different fiber applicator depending on the application you're looking for. But you can do a lot of square footage at one time. You put a 5-gallon bucket on there. Alright, so I'm going to go both ways on this just to make sure, since so I haven't done anything to the tile. There's no wax on here. I didn't buff the factory coating off. So this would be as if we just took vinyl tile out of the box, installed it, and then instead of waxing it, came in with the Sentry Floor Shield H2O and coated it. So there we go. That's my first coat. That looks great. Hopefully the camera's picking up how much material's on here. I'm going to separate these two because they will fuse together, which would be an advantage on a larger floor. That coating will go down in between the seams and actually fuse that shut to where no water can even get. You end up having a monolithic floor. So it's 11 o'clock on my clock right now, and at 12 o'clock we'll put the second coat on. Okay, it's been 50 minutes. I'm going to buff these tiles and then get that second coat on there. So hopefully the shine comes out in this video, and that I did that with the a white pad. We also have the champagne pad that we can use, but I decided to use the white one on here. So now I'll tape it off and we'll do our second coat. Okay, so now I'm going to do the second coat. Same method. I got my applicator. So hopefully again you can see the thickness of the coating on here. It's always hard to get the camera just perfectly in the right spot. But now we're going to wait another hour and then we'll buff it again and put the third coat on. Okay, so it's been about 52 minutes and we're going to take the same white pad and we're going to knock down the second coat that was on top of the first coat and see what that looks like. Okay, so there's the second coat polished off, and definitely a lot more gloss on there. So now I'll tape it off and I'll put the third coat on here, and then we'll buff that off. Okay, so get my applicator wet here. And there we go. So we'll let that set up for another hour and then we'll buff it off. Okay, so this is the third coat here. Again, I'm going to use the white pad to buff it off. Alright, so the reason that I buffed in between each coat was, one, I wanted to see how soon we could actually get on it and buff it off. An hour is quite a bit, but I wanted to start at an hour. We can always work down shorter. But the other thing I wanted to show, I built up 3 coats before and just built them up without doing any buffing. And this shine here has more gloss to it than what I got when I just kept building on it without buffing in between. So part of the process of buffing in between gets you on your final finish a better looking floor as far as shine goes. So hopefully the camera picked it all up. Again, these tiles had nothing on it. It was just the raw tile with the factory edge up. You know, they do a treatment on it from the factory, and so we went on it dry with no wax and put a single coat over the whole thing and then we buffed it, and from here in we put a second coat, and then we buffed it, and from here in we did the third coat and buffed it, We had an hour in between each application, and this is the application of Sentry Floor Shield H2O, totally water-based product. You can finish and polish a floor in one site visit, and this coating right here is so thick that the coating never has to come off. And on a 3-coat system, you have several, 10, 15 polishings that you can do on this if you're trying to maintain it and remove scratches. But you definitely have a depth of the coating here to be able to keep polishing it, shine it up, and but never have to remove the coating. And if you thought you were getting down pretty close to maybe like the thickness of the first coating here, then it's as simple as polishing it out where you want it, like what we did, and then put another coat on top, and now you've got more depth to deal with. So Sentry Floor Shield H2O, Sentry molecular coatings. So here are my 2 tiles that I did yesterday. Again, this is a 1-coat application of the Sentry Floor Shield onto a unwaxed vinyl composition tile. This is a 2nd coat that was applied after buffing of the 1st coat, and this is a 3rd coat that was applied after the buffing of the 2nd coat. And again, 1 coat, 2 coats, and 3 coats. And of course, then I polished the whole thing out too, so you can see the degrees of shine. And again, this is a sample scale. In a larger scale, some of the blemishes, I see a little bit of streaking here. I see like maybe dust particles here. All that could be taken out with a floor machine, but overall, to be able to, so in my process, again, I used 3 hours. At scale, a crew could come into an unwaxed floor, apply the Sentry Floor Shield, buff it off, and be buffing off the coating in 1 hour. If they want to go to a 2nd coat system or a 3rd coat system, they could just keep leapfrogging. But overnight, they could complete a substantial amount of square footage, producing a better finish and a harder finish and an easily maintained finish. This coating would never be removed. It would just be continually polished as necessary. And then once the thickness of the coating itself had been reduced enough, it would be polished out and then another coat added to give some more depth of future polishing.